Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Kayla and I release new videos every Monday about all things BPD and mental health. So if that sounds good to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below as well as the bell notification up top. Now, as I had mentioned, we will be discussing how to navigate BPD and dating together. We know that BPD can make interpersonal relationships very tricky at times because there is so very often this core fear of abandonment, which makes it hard to get close to others, to trust people, to really engage fully in those relationships out of the fear of getting hurt by those surrounding us. Now, before we start, I want to mention the fact that it's not just because you have BPD that you will not be able to maintain and thrive in a relationship, okay? We know that BPD is not this thing that's black or white, that you have these symptoms and this is the only way that it presents itself. We know that it's a spectrum of severity, of symptoms, of the way it looks like. It's different in every single one of us. And so each person who has BPD will have a different experience of relationships. They'll have a different level of difficulty with them and maintaining stable and healthy ones. For me, for example, I think that before getting my diagnosis and really understanding what was up with me, it was hard to, first of all, be attracted to the right kinds of people because I loved men who were toxic and who just would not give me their best selves and full selves because that's what I believe that I deserved. And through therapy and a lot of hard work and introspection, I got myself to a point where now I love the fact that I'm in a stable relationship and a lot of the patterns and stuff have diminished or gone away and we're able to function well together and things are going good, okay? So now, what do we do? How do we navigate this if you do struggle with it? Because if you don't, that's awesome. And I wish that for everyone, that everyone can just engage in relationships well and smoothly. But if you don't, know that that's okay. The first thing I will recommend is to not force it, okay? Oftentimes when we feel not lovable, that we're not good enough, that we're deserving of being treated poorly, we might force relationships with people who are not good for us, okay? Think about this analogy. You have a perfectly good foot and a perfectly good shoe. There's nothing wrong with either one of them. But if the shoe is the wrong size, it doesn't fit. That doesn't mean that the shoe is bad. That doesn't mean that your foot is bad. It just means that it's not a good fit. Same thing with relationships. If you have BPD and you fear abandonment and you love people who are toxic for you, okay. And then you meet the shoe who is not a good fit for you. It's too small or it's too big or whatever it is. And maybe for a while you're okay to squeeze into it or to walk around with a big shoe that doesn't allow you to run or walk fully the real way that you should be. But after a while, we need to realize that those poor fitting shoes are hindering our journey of self-growth and self-recovery. So number one, how to navigate dating and BPD. If it doesn't fit, move on and don't force it. Okay, the second thing now for navigating dating with BPD would be to look out for signs of codependency and abuse in your early stages of your relationship. As we know from research, from stories that I hear all the time, there seems to be a high attraction between those who have BPD and NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, for those of you who aren't sure what NPD is, because it's almost like two personality disorders that were made perfectly to go together to become codependent, because you have this person who fears abandonment and so will subjugate themselves to abuse because they want to be loved so desperately, paired with this person who is desperate to get validation and words of affirmation constantly that they can get and manipulate from this other person. And so in the early stages of dating or relationships, look out for those signs or red flags. A relationship, and I've talked about this, the love bombing, right? That starts off very fast. It's very intense. Gaslighting, You want to look out for those red flags. Someone who seems unavailable, or who seems that can only love you if you're giving them everything that they want and need, and they don't welcome these parts of you that aren't as peppy or loving. And so on top of it, we want to look out for things not being a good fit when we're starting to date. We also want to look out for those signs of codependency and abuse. Thirdly, we want to take things slow. Okay, what I mean by this, and maybe not everyone's going to agree with me, this might be a hot take, but I think that initially when you're starting the process of dating, holding off on having sex initially might be a good idea. Okay, just hear me out for a second here. I think it's really easy to confuse love with lust. And I think especially having sex with someone is so intimate, and it releases all these feel good, what we call the love hormones, right? Oxytocin, that connects us and bonds us with the person. It can be really hard to not let emotions get wrapped up in something that initially was intended to be purely physical. And so I think that taking things slow initially, at least at first, will give you a better sense of whether or not this person is a good fit for you, whether or not they will love you for who you are as a person and not necessarily what you have to offer them. And I am fully aware that this is a personal preference, and I know that I'm all about being empowered and you can choose to do what you want at the end of the day. I've also just heard a lot of stories about people being intimate too quickly and getting wrapped up in these situationships that they don't really want to be in, but they feel confused with these feelings of attraction and love and lust, and it all gets mished up in this weird soup that now you don't really know what you're eating, but you're there and you don't know what to do with it. Next up, I want you to learn to embrace fear, okay? I want you to acknowledge the fact that dating is hard in general, okay? It's hard for everyone, regardless of if you have BPD or not. It's scary to be vulnerable. It's scary to put yourself out there, to let your walls down, to have someone see you for who you truly are. That is terrifying. And the fear, we can think about it as we have our zone of safety in the middle, we have our zone of discomfort, and then we have our zone of being in a crisis. And where we grow, it's this middle zone of being uncomfortable, that we push ourselves just the right amount by being vulnerable and putting ourselves out there to allow us to potentially meet someone who is good for us, but also to grow and develop as a person. This can be a good zone where we learn what our defense mechanisms are, what walls that we tend to put up with others that maybe are hindering the process of dating overall. And lastly, this can be a tricky thing, but decide when the right time or not to disclose that you have BPD. There's no right or wrong time, and I've already made a video talking about this, which I'll just link right above here. But essentially, dating is hard, and then dating on top of that, when you have this highly stigmatized mental disorder, then there's this added pressure of, do I need to tell them? When do I say it? Will people like me? Will they stay with me? Will they judge me? Will they this, that, 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 that? It adds to the stress of dating. And so you can think about this even before you enter the dating pool. Think about it in your own mind. What would that look like? How would the conversation go? Spend a bit of time feeling out for yourself if there's a kind of timeline that feels right for you, but deciding on your own terms without the expectations of others or yourself that you might be placing when the right time to disclose or not BPD to someone else. Those were just a few tips and tricks on how to navigate dating when you have BPD, because I know, like I said, it is so hard, and I'm so thankful that I don't have to restart that process again, because even just listening to my friends talk about their dating experiences, and it just it scares me. And so I admire you all who are putting yourselves out there just regularly. But then on top of that, if you have BPD, that's hard stuff. And so you should take a moment right now to congratulate yourself and be proud of yourself for where you are today, for doing your best, for showing up, for engaging in this community, for sharing your time with me. It means a lot to me that I'm able to be a part of your recovery journey. On that note, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. You can also share it because we want to spread the word about BPD, and also leave a comment down below about your experiences with dating with BPD. What has helped you? Do you have any horror stories of things that have happened? Leave a comment down below. I always read and respond to all of them. And on that note, have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next time for another episode of On the Line.